Michael Gershe is definitely an incredible and extraordinary human being, and I am so honored that he is today's guest on the Power Transformation podcast. Ever since he was 8 weeks old, Michael has experienced what it means to be a true survivor. And as he grew older, despite that painstaking, life changing situation that happened to him when he was just an infant, he still chose to go on to become a collegiate swimmer, comedian, speaker, author, college educator, photographer, and so much more. Michael has had over 25 years experience on stage, and he has presented to schools, colleges, military bases, and also a TEDx talk is under his belt. You see, Michael uses humor and audience participation for his story in order to give not only a truly educational but inspirational message. I don't want to give too much away in this intro, but I guarantee you, listen to this interview with Michael Gershe, and your entire life, well being, mindset, everything will be totally transformed. He is a true testament that no matter the obstacles that come your way, even from your early age, you too can make such a powerful, influential difference in the life of so many. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. I am your host, Alethea Felton, and it is truly an honor to have you all with me today. Thank you so much, especially for those of you who may be new to the podcast and those of you who have been with me since the beginning. Can you believe it, y'all? We are almost at 100 episodes. This is episode 98. And the guest that we have today is absolutely incredible, as you could hear from that introduction. So I don't want to prolong the time, but let's go ahead and jump right on into this, where I always begin this podcast with a positive affirmation. We speak things into existence. We speak them as if they already exist. And you know what? When you do this consistently, it truly does change your life for the better. So I'm going to say this affirmation once and you repeat it. I find joy, hope, and moments of laughter despite the challenges that have come my way. I am so excited to have Michael Gershe here on the Power Transformation Podcast. And y'all, I have to admit, we've already had some laughs because that's just who he is. And so I know that we're going to have a great time here. He's going to be himself. I'm going to be myself. But welcome, Michael, to the Power Transformation Podcast.
Thank you for having me. You know what? The laughs are all over. Now it's nothing. I don't need that type of pressure.
Exactly. But that's okay. So, look, what I like to do with all of my guests, I always like to start with just a random icebreaker question so that we can get to know you better and to learn just a bit more about you from a fun aspect of things. So, Michael, this is your icebreaker question for you. And I'm hoping you'll be able to answer one or the other. If not, oh well, we're going to have to improv here. But Marvel or DC?
Oh, that's easy. That's Marvel.
Oh, okay.
I'm a Spider-Man nerd through and through since I was a little kid to adulthood. My office has Spider-Man action figures in my office. I got one upstairs. So, yeah, I got a Spider-Man on the back of my phone. So, yep, Marvel all the way. What about yourself?
Wow. So I like now hold on. You said Spider-Man?
Yep.
I thought he was DC Comics.
Oh no. Nope.
Isn't Spider-Man DC?
Nope.
He's not wait a minute. Oh, I'm thinking about Black. Okay, there's a DC character called Black Spider. That's what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Spider-Man's Marvel. Okay, yeah. Because I was about to say, okay, yeah. So I like Spider-Man also, but I got confused for a second. But yes, tell me this though. What is it about Spider-Man that resonates the most with you?
Oh my goodness, how much time you have? It's
We
very
got
interesting you
time.
brought this up because I talk about Spider-Man in my The Magic of Life program when I talk about role models, and Tigger's first
Oh.
and then Spider-Man's next because as a kid, I gravitated towards Peter Parker, shy, quiet, bullied as Peter Parker. He also had death early on in his family, and
Mhm.
I had death early on in my family. So I identified
Yeah,
with that. And when he became Spider-Man and he put on that mask, he used humor as a defense mechanism.
you're right. You're right.
So
Okay. I like
and
that.
and I love that part because I did the same thing through trauma and grief. I used humor as my coping mechanism as well.
Hmm.
So I
Okay.
love both those, but also as the Peter Parker character got older through life, he had trouble with relationships, paying the rent, jobs. Those were everyday issues that I could
Hmm.
identify with. I couldn't identify with Bruce Wayne,
Hmm.
living, in a mansion and stuff because we weren't rich or anything like that. But Peter Parker and Spider-Man, as every kid going through those same growing pains, I could
Hmm.
identify with that character.
So it would be ironic that I have a comedian here on my show today because, okay, at the time that we're doing this, it's evening time, East Coast time. It's still early evening, right? But I have to admit, I've had a long day, but I've been excited about your interview. So, when you said Spider-Man, you know what it registered as initially? And I think this is where I got confused. It registered Superman in my brain.
Okay.
So I gaffed on that one. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm not going to edit this part out because I like to be authentic. So as soon as you said Spider-Man and you said Marvel, I'm like, isn't that? Then I know DC because I love comic books. I was a comic book kid and all of that kind of stuff, right? So I know DC had some kind of character called like Black Spider or something very, very minor, something like that. So when you said Spider-Man, it clicked. I saw Kryptonite Superman. And then after I had you to explain more and you said Peter Parker, I'm like, Lord, I just embarrassed myself. If there's anybody listening or watching this for the first time, please know that I have myself together, but I just messed up there.
The comments go to her, okay? Not to me. They all go to her about that.
They go to me about it. Oh Lord. Because I love Marvel also. So as soon as you said that, I'm like, what? But as soon as he said Peter Parker, I said, oh my gosh. I said, do I play it off or am I just gonna be honest? And I'm honest about it, is that my brain saw Superman. But okay, so there we are. What a way to start the show. But
That's an
hey,
icebreaker for you.
yeah, a total icebreaker. But anyway, moving along with that, you all, too many people online and everything else now try to act oh so perfect. I will be the first one to say that, yeah, I might have all these titles behind me, X, Y, and Z, but I'm a human being just like you all. And Michael's story definitely is one that you all are going to get something great out of. And I do understand that connection with Spider-Man, but before we even go more into that, tell us up front, just in case a person has to come back to this interview later. But if a person wants to connect with you outside of our show, how can they go about doing that, Michael?
First of all, no one's leaving. They're not coming back to this. They're going to watch all the way through. There's no getting up for this. It's not like Lord of the Rings, a 4-hour program. It's
No, it's no, it's
three and a half.
6 hours, Michael. It's
Yeah,
6 hours, not
right.
four.
I have a brand new website. It's just michaelgershe.com. And that's easy. And then you can see all my links to Facebook, which is also Michael Gershe,
Mhm,
LinkedIn. There's the Magical Life Foundation page.
mhm,
There's Michael Gershe Photography. And I also have Instagram, which is Gershe, GERSHEPIX for my photography and also speaking and comedy stuff on there. But the easiest way,
mhm.
michaelgershe.com.
Thank you so much. And I will also have those in the description and show notes. But say if a person just were randomly to ask somebody in a room, maybe they didn't know what you look like or anything, but came up to you and said, "Hey, I've heard about this guy named Michael Gershe. Who is Michael Gershe?" What would you say to them?
Now it will be 6 hours long as we dive into it. You know, I used to think I was a victim and survivor of a drunk driving crash. I always
Mm,
thought for 40 something years that's who I was. And let's go back to how I started, because that identifies who I am. That kind of like a superhero, you have to have that one incident that makes you want to be that superhero, right? I mean, everyone has that. When I was 8 weeks old, my father was driving us home from Long Island, and my brother, who was 3, was sleeping in the back seat. My mom was next to my dad, and I was next to my mom. And I was just shy of 8 weeks, and we were less than a mile away from our house. When our light turned green, my dad started to go through the intersection when a drunk driver plowed through the intersection and T-boned the car. The force of the impact was so great it totaled the cars, but also split our car all the way up to the dashboard by
mm,
hitting a telephone pole. My brother didn't have a scratch on him. My dad had to get stitches on his face from the windshield. My mom was taken into surgery. And as for me, nearly every bone in my body was broken. My skull was completely fractured from one side of my head to the other. So the fact that I am a week away from being 54 and talking to you is nothing short of a miracle.
mhm,
And so that starts off that question in terms of who I am, because I'm also a son who never knew his mom, because my mom unfortunately died due to her injuries. So that is a huge identifier, because I never had a chance to know my mom. Or my brother was only 3; he really didn't know her either. So that's a part of who I am, because that turned into purpose. That trauma, that grief,
mhm.
where even growing up as a kid, I knew something was missing out of my life. And I was also raised by a Jamaican woman named Dolly. Long story short, she answered an ad my grandmother put in the newspaper for part-time help. She answered it. What was supposed to be a part-time job turned into a lifetime role. So Dolly, along with my dad, raised us, my brother and I. And I say I'm Jewish Jamaican because I'm a white Jewish family and a black Jamaican family, but really
Wow.
it's just family. And she's
Yeah.
93 years old. She will kill me if she knows I mentioned her age. But again, that's part of who I am. Those situations made me the person today. If it
Mm,
wasn't with her, if it wasn't for her, I don't know how I would have turned out, because along with her and my dad, they instilled values, morals, but also my mom too, because everything I've done has been an honor or a tribute to my mom, where I created this program called The Magical Life, where I present at high schools, colleges, I've done military bases, courts,
mhm.
to make sure other families don't go through what my family went through. So, advocate, son with purpose, superhero, I guess, because I've done this program for 30 years, hopefully saving some lives along the way. Tomorrow
Mhm.
I'm doing a program for the DUI offenders here at a local court near me. And I've been doing that for 11 years and changing their lives to inspire them to never drive impaired again. It's a challenge sometimes, but it's also the most rewarding part of my job as a speaker. And it's an
Mhm.
audience I never thought I would ever speak in front of. But it's been incredible when they come up afterwards and they shake your hand, or they buy a book, or they donate to the foundation. And this, in your role, if you could change someone's life, I mean, that's an awesome thing to do.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I like to think I'm a son, not only to my dad, who passed away a few years ago, but to my mom and Dolly. I'm a
Mhm.
brother, I'm a friend. I'm just someone on this planet who wants to create change and make it better before my time is up. I know how
Mhm.
blessed I am to be here on a daily basis. Even there was a time where I didn't really want to be here due to depression and grief and trauma. And you mentioned earlier about connections. It was those connections in my life that kept me here. Uh,
Wow.
my last TED talk was called Survive by Our Connections, because I thought about my mom and Dolly and my best friends and people that have an impact on us. And I didn't want them to go through loss and tragedy where they kind of go, why didn't he reach out? And
Yeah.
both know through depression, there is hope for people. Don't feel like you're a burden to anyone. Get help. But I think with someone with a sense of humor, if I can make someone laugh and make a difference in their lives, then at the end of the day, that's a pretty special thing to do. And so that might wrap up in general of who I am.
Yeah.
I'm still holding
And
out hope I could be Spider-Man.
yeah, you know what? You never know. Miracles can and do happen, and perhaps miraculously, you will somehow wake up one day and be Spider-Man. Who
Right?
knows what could happen? Maybe you'll be in a lab one day and a random spider breaks free, and who knows? The rest is
Right.
history.
Right. I
Still
mean, I'm a
hope.
miracle being alive. So you're right. It could happen.
It could happen, anything nowadays. In 2024, you just turn on the TV or turn on your laptop or the apps, anything can happen. I don't put anything past anything. But I think that everything that you said with so much trauma that you had literally at such a young infancy, at 8 weeks old, to lose your mother in that way. This is a question I never asked, even when we had our pre-talk. Were they ever able to find the person who caused the accident?
Yes.
Oh.
So he was also hit. I mean, he hit a car. So, when things happen, first
Hmm.
responders arrived. They took him to the hospital, and he lied to the police at the scene. He said he wasn't the one driving. He said his friend who was in the back seat was the one driving. So
Oh.
when he got to the hospital, another officer noticed his eyes were bloodshot. He was combative. He reeked of alcohol, and he was driving on a suspended license, which is why he lied to the police. And when his blood alcohol was taken 3 hours afterwards, he was a 0.10. So imagine
Ooh.
what he was at the time of the car crash. He admitted to
Mhm.
drinking at least a six pack, and he couldn't pay his bail. So when the court case happened in 1971, he was sentenced to 3 years with time served already.
Mm.
So that's 1971. One of my fellow speakers, Christine Monchek, who will speak with me at the court, talks about her son who was killed by a drunk driver about 10 years ago. And the guy that killed her son was sentenced to 5 years. So you take 1971 to 2014, three and a half, 3 years, five. The law isn't always on our side,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
so that doesn't change. But yeah, they found him, and unfortunately he was sentenced to just that. But we have a lifetime sentence, and we have
Yes.
to figure out, are we going to live, or are we going to, stay
Mhm.
in this turmoil of grief and anger and depression? And, I don't think my mom would want me to live that way. It's very easy to
Mhm.
crawl into a bottle and play the victim card. But I go back to how I was raised with my dad and Dolly. And
Yeah.
and my role models like Spider-Man and Tigger and James Bond and the rock band
Mm.
Kiss, those all have an influence on my life,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
how to overcome. Is it easy? No. Are we going to have our sad days and bad days where we don't want to get out of bed? Yeah, we do. That's life. But at the same time, we have to try to put one foot forward and figure out a way to live.
Indeed. And when you spoke of your dad and Dolly teaching you those values and morals, tell us about a pivotal lesson about life or just character building that Dolly specifically taught you. What is something she instilled in you that has lasted with you to this day?
How to cook.
Oh.
And
You
how to do
making that
laundry
jerk chicken,
properly.
huh?
Yeah, and how to do
And that
laundry
curry
properly.
goat.
She taught me how to stand up for myself and to
Mm.
really believe in myself. Those were the things that inspired me. In terms of learn how to be who you are, and you know, don't be afraid to show people that either. And she just
Mhm.
gave me the courage to pursue my goals and dreams along with my dad. They were very supportive, whether it was magic or going into comedy, they never
Mhm.
once said no. And I think
Okay.
it's very important that we have that support, for our dreams. I might have failed a million times, but at least they supported me. And I think, that
Mhm.
learned through swimming, being a swimmer too. what I learned in the pool, you apply outside. But with
Mhm.
her, it was compassion, unconditional love, what the human spirit could do if you're willing to do it. Because here was a woman that raised two white Jewish boys, and it was about color, creed, or religion. It was about basic human need.
That's right.
And growing up in a diverse family where you have, who's this black woman with, three white guys, it wasn't, that was normal for us. And that's how
Mhm.
we project life. So, it's not about, for me, you've seen, how people say they don't see color, but I really don't, because that's not how I was raised. Being in a diverse family from, say, birth. I mean, she came into our household around October, November of 1970, and she would stay in my room, and I would play hide and go seek with her between, the bars of the crib and those type of things. But
Mhm.
that, for me, that she's my mom, because that's all I know.
Mhm. Exactly.
So yeah, I would say compassion, unconditional love just through life, because she did that for us. So it's really modeling that same behavior for other people, right?
Mhm.
And how to go after your dreams and just do the things that make you happy.
And just the fact she stayed with you throughout your entire life, and that is, and so I'm just going to say something on a personal note. I asked what was one of the lessons Dolly taught you. Now, I'm a Southerner by birth, and I'm a Black Hispanic woman. And so after I said it and you were answering, I said, just in case of the event, she or someone in your family's listening, let me backtrack and say, Miss Dolly, because that's just how it's right. I said, oh, I called her Dolly, Miss Dolly, right?
Right.
That's just my upbringing. And that's just a cultural thing about how I'm sitting here like she's 93 years young. And I said, oh my
Yep.
gosh, I just called her by her first name, Miss Dolly.
You're 100% correct on that. You are.
So I'm like, uh-oh. I just felt like, oh no, I gotta correct that. So please forgive me. Miss Dolly did instill those values in you. But I like that lesson about standing up for yourself and going after your dreams. And so, as I said in the intro part that you didn't hear, but just in our conversation now, you're a professional comedian and amongst other things. But when we think about humor, inspiration, and transformation, especially Michael, with everything, the gamut of things that you've experienced in your life, some that we haven't even touched on yet, but let's shift here and talk about humor. How exactly has humor played a role in your lifelong healing process from any adversity that you've experienced? And how does humor help your efforts in helping others?
It's called denial. That's
Mm.
how you were to use it. Well, ever since I was, you're never going to get a straight answer at me first,
Of course not.
but I think as a kid I got involved with magic, and
Mhm.
humor was a big part of that. Harry Anderson, for instance, was a huge influence. Where
Mm.
this wasn't about the trick, but it was about making people laugh. And
Mhm.
so, even as a youngster, I was good at making people laugh, and for me, that was like that drug, hearing that reaction. And as I got older and got into comedy, the first time I did, I was 18, 17, 18, back home in Miami. And I was horrible. I didn't get any laughs or nothing like that. But it's like, this is what I want to do. And some people think, you can make your friends laugh, me go on stage. It's totally different, you
Mhm.
know. But there's, in magic, I love magic, but it was also something where you could walk into the magic store, buy a trick, practice it at home, and do that.
Mhm.
Comedy, you can't teach someone how to be funny. You could teach them how to maybe write a joke structure, or put a set together. But funny, you can't teach funny.
Mhm.
I think it's inside our soul. It's that gift that we have, that humor, and being blessed with that, and the high you get from it. Whereas if I write a joke and do it on stage, someone laughs. That to me is those endorphins, right? It's just, getting that feedback and knowing that you're helping someone else forget their troubles. My fellow comedians know this, where if you're lined up after a show and someone comes up to you and says, "Thank you for making me laugh. I really needed that." That's better than getting paid, because you took them away from their pain or whatever it was for that little bit. we just did a show for Temple Israel, a fundraiser, and people would say, "Thank you, it was great, thank you for making me laugh." And that's what I love about it. It's not always about us on stage; it's for the audience and that healing process, but also that connection we have. So I love it because it heals me from trauma and grief, because you can make someone laugh and you kind of feel good about that. And it's those endorphins, it call it purpose, in a way. Whether I'm sitting in my office and making a student laugh, you're reducing their tension. I'm reducing my tension and stress. And, it's one of those great stress relievers. And being and the ability to do that, sometimes at the wrong situation, but damn, it's funny when it happens, like in a meeting or something. That icebreaker. You apologize for it later, but you might get some stares, but you might get some laughs, and that's
Yeah.
worth it.
Uh-huh.
And it's just that connection with an audience and making them laugh. I think for any comedian, and a lot of them would say, they've gone through trauma and grief. That's why we're on stage, right? Because there's been some tragedy we've gone through, and we use that as a catalyst. Some not. Seinfeld said he's never been through anything horrible for that. Robin Williams was a tortured soul. A lot of comedians. And it's just one of those things where if I'm sad and depressed, I'll use humor as that coping mechanism. So not only for the audience, for other people, but also for myself to reduce my stress, my tension, help with my depression through that too. And writing funny things on Facebook on a daily basis. If I could do that, and
Indeed.
yeah,
Yes, I
and
have
make
read
someone
some of those. They make me laugh. Yeah, they really
yeah.
do.
I mean, it's just bringing humor on a daily basis because you never know what someone's going through, as you know. But if I can make someone laugh through that, then I'm happy. And it's a very powerful thing when you could do that for someone. And the fact that I have the that ability to do is wonderful.
Did you find yourself at a young age having humor in you? And if so, what type of a kid were you?
Um, I was a little mischievous, not in a bad way,
Yeah.
but it was also good. Because don't get me wrong, my belt came off of me and ended up hitting my butt a lot. So, my brother and I would joke with Dolly and say, the discipline you gave us would be considered child abuse today. And,
Uh-huh.
we never got in trouble in school because we knew the punishment back home would be a lot worse than
Yeah.
anything else. But we were good-natured kids. It's just those little, mischievous, always, interested in
Yeah.
different things. I have my magic and Star Wars and Spider-Man, and I used that as an escape mechanism, and probably not knowing as a kid, but looking back when I did research for the book and I had to go back to my childhood, I think using humor, Star Wars, Spider-Man, those type of things was an escape from not having my mom and that tragedy and grief, because no one knew. I was, we were busy swimming, going to school, and doing those things. And it was interesting because I had cousins who said, we had no idea you were going through that. Well, I was a kid. No one's going to know.
Of
No one knew
course.
to ask those questions, but humor was just a good coping thing. When I remember when I was doing magic shows for my family at family outings and you make them laugh, that was cool. I love, again, it goes back to, I love that feeling. My great grandmother was very funny, making people laugh. And I think, for being Jewish, I think the Jewish faith, the tribe, as we call it, humor, Holocaust, bad situations in our history where we used humor to help cope, for
Exactly.
ourselves, for other people. And I think it's just that. My dad wasn't necessarily funny. Um, my great grandmother was, she was a huge influence. She wanted me to be a doctor. So I changed my magic stage name from Magical Michael to Dr. Magic. This is the only way I'm going to be a doctor. It's not going to be
Yeah.
through medical school, because I wasn't that great of a student, because I
Mhm.
was also a daydreamer. So my mind was elsewhere, not studying and doing things. I was focused on trying to make people laugh or pretending to be a superhero.
Yeah.
Who else in the classroom I wanted to be. And, so it was just, humor was just always there for me. And it was just a very cool feeling to see how it grew. And I knew very young, junior high, that I wanted to go into comedy. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's a good transition because I was just about to ask you something more along the lines of when did you, and it might not have been in junior high school, but when did you realize, Michael, that your story was so powerful that it could inspire and motivate others through the use of humor?
High school. High
Mm,
school, I got involved with SAD, which back then was
yes. So
Students Against Drunk Driving.
driving.
So
Yeah.
that put me on that path to learn how to share my story. And then I got into college, and I was part of campus activities board,
Mhm.
and I knew about other speakers. I went to grad school for higher education, where I advised the alcohol awareness group. So those are the things that kind of put me on the path to be a speaker. And in grad school at the University of Akron, excuse me, I had a sorority girl, one of my students that I advise in the groups, because if I could put together a fun program for her sorority. And I did one or two prior to grad school. I worked for a school called EF, International School of English in Miami, Florida. And I put together a program, using magic, to symbolize certain things, because the international students see alcohol a much different way than American students do.
Mhm.
But also, they were going to South Beach and other places and driving back to the apartments or campus impaired. And I didn't want anything happening to those students. So I put together a fun little program where I could share my story for the very first time, to those. And then once grad school hit, I put together, another fun program, and that ball kind of rolled into, doing what I'm doing now.
Mhm.
But I would go back to high school was really where it kind of started, and being part
Mhm.
of that student group.
So, with that being said, take us now on a journey, just a slight shift, because I know that you also do a lot in terms of mental health advocacy. And it's so interesting because it's this dynamic with the humor. And I know some professional comedians also where it's this humorous aspect, but most comedians that I've read their autobiographies or even heard them within interviews, they may be innately humorous or funny people, but yet a lot of them also go through some dark spaces and dark times as well, which helps them to appreciate the humorous aspects of things more and how they reach and connect with their audience. So, share with us a little bit about how your mental health advocacy came about and what is it that draws you even to having such compassion for people in that area?
Okay. That part started in 2018. My father died in January of 2018.
Mhm.
My aunt, his sister, passed away almost 90 days later.
Wow.
Brother and sister, right? They were 10 years
Yeah.
apart in life, and then they died. My dad had Parkinson's. My aunt had ovarian cancer. Both
Mm.
battled those diseases for about 8, 9 years. Um, and I emulated what my dad did when it came to grief and trauma. You bottle up inside as a man, because that's how we're also taught. But he was my
Mhm.
role model for that. So I was already bottling that up, not even grieving for my dad when my aunt passed away. So then that put me really into that spiral where I lost my sense of humor. And it was
Mm.
June, the first week of June of 2018. The Magic Life Foundation was going to have its very first fundraiser. I had a friend, my photography mentor Ray, taking photos of me for new headshots there, and she said, "We can't use these photos because you have sad eyes." And I thought,
Oh.
I'm trying to hide, I'm trying to do a good job. I have this fundraiser. I'm putting on a good face, and this goes back to those, saved by your connections, because the people that really know us, they know
Mhm.
us. We could try to hide, but they know who we are,
Mhm.
and when things aren't going well. So that was the first indicator. The second one was having lunch with a friend of mine who became a grief counselor. I had an idea called "Staying Up to Grief." Three comedians, doing comedy, but also talking about our role as, in grief. There's me as a son. I had a friend that's a widower, and I had another friend that lost his son. So we were going to do comedy, but then also talk about grief. Having lunch with her, and I stand up afterwards. She goes, "You don't look like yourself." She goes, "Why don't you make an appointment?" And it took me 2 days, and I went on, and that was the first step to getting into men's and also mental health. I made that appointment, and every question was yes, except one. I was not pregnant. That was good. But that was the same week where I had a plan. I was going to do what Robin Williams did in my office, and I put my head on my desk, and I thought about Dolly. I thought about my brother. I thought about my friends, because we lost one of our best friends in 2004. And I thought about them. And I got up from my office, and I had to walk outside my building for a good 10 minutes. And that pretty much saved my life if I didn't get up and get asking for help. Because I was done. And it's not like I wanted to die. I wanted the pain to stop, from the depression, the grief, all that. And, going to grief counseling, the very first statement she asked was, she didn't ask, it was more of a statement. She goes, "Let's talk about your mom's death and how that impacted all your relationships." I was 47 years old. And even though I talked about my mom's death on stage for the Magical Life program for impaired driving, I never really processed my mom's death. So here was the very first step. And she was right, because even though I had relationships and stuff, I'm not married or whatever, because I saw the pain my father went through, and I went, I don't want to experience that.
Oh, I see.
I also sacrificed dating to go into comedy too. I put career first too. So both those things, but I didn't want, even though my dad and Dolly had a relationship, it still wasn't my mom and my dad.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, I understand.
So seeing what my dad went through, and I remember him writing me and my brother an email December 19th, 2012, which would have been my parents' 48th wedding anniversary. And he was in the hospital a lot that year. And he said, even to that day, it was still too hard to talk about my mom. So
He loved her. He
yeah.
loved her. That was the love of his life.
He carried around that grief and trauma for 47 years. So he had that mental part, and then he also had the physical part with Parkinson's.
Wow.
And, so we had to work through that pain and trauma. And that's when I read a lot of Brené Brown's books, because I knew going to counseling, I was a problem. I had to heal myself. I was the issue. It wasn't other people. It was me. And I put that time and effort, and I said, I am willing to do whatever it takes to heal. And, every day is a healing process. I wouldn't say I'm healed. I'm healing.
Of course.
And because that trauma and grief, whatever, is always there. But now I have the tools to help cope with it. The 21st is my mom's birthday. She would have been 82. 3 days later is my birthday. So, these are the times, these anniversaries, as you know, is hard. Counseling helped me get through that. So I kind of have those set skills, whether I go do photography or go hang out with friends or go on a hike, whatever it is. So when I went through that process, and knowing how free it was as a man, not to be afraid to talk about depression, trauma, and grief, I wanted to give back and try to help other men who feel that it's too scary to ask for help, or it's a sign of weakness, when really it's a sign of strength. And when I was done with the counseling the first time, and my counselor goes, "You look like a different person," I was like, "I feel like a different person." That's putting in the work to change. I went back again in when I turned 50, because I think turning 50, the 50th car anniversary of the car crash, those type of things. Then we did something called EMDR, which I can't remember the full name for it, but it was a sensory type of thing. And that helped, because I had a lot of anger towards one of my best friends who died as a result of being a drunk driver in 2004. So I carried his anger, that anger I had towards him until then. And then I had to let that go. And, being on, meeting fellow men who are also open to talk about grief and trauma was very cool, because we should be able to normalize it like we talk about sports, and not be afraid. And I learned, Brené Brown with vulnerability and shame, and shame and all those things. Like, what was I afraid of? by
Yeah.
talking about it. It's very freeing. And, instead of my depression and grief and trauma controlling me, now I can kind of control it and go, you don't own me. And then the humor is a part of that too, because you kind of, have some fun with it, so to speak. But I think, counseling allowed me to take control of it in a way. And,
Mhm.
medication can be a part of it. I mean, I was on Lexapro for like a little bit, but as we both know, medication's half of the healing process.
Yes.
You don't go to
Yes.
counseling and do the other half. They're going to increase your meds more and more, and the brain chemistry changes, but you're not
Hmm.
doing the part in your soul to start that healing process.
And that's actually something that we never talked about, but it wasn't with my grief because I did share with you, I've experienced significant grief also, but the part that we didn't share offline or anything like that, I actually was on Lexapro for about a year, years ago. I was in a toxic work environment that led me to a very stressful situation. I had to take off. I had a bully boss at the time. And there were two of us who were heads of departments in that specific organization. And both of us at the same time took off work because of the pressure. And I went to a doctor, everything, and I was on Lexapro. So we're also Lexapro buddies. And I took it for about a year. But I like your point, not making light of that situation, but it goes to show, and I'm just encouraging listeners and viewers out there that when you need the extra support and help, get the extra support and help. And there is no shame in taking care of yourself, none whatsoever. So I
Yeah.
think that that's so important. And if somebody's listening now, and I still have quite a few more questions, but I kind of want to take this moment. If someone's listening right now or seeing this and they're actually having this challenge with grief or depression, what tips or strategies or even just downright advice would you give them based on lessons you learned even from your own journey?
I think the first step is recognizing it and knowing that you want to get help and be a
Mhm.
burden to someone. Go confide in someone that won't look at you any differently, for that. Trust is
Mhm.
a huge thing. And luckily I knew my grief counselor for many
Mhm.
years, because that
Mm.
connection with a grief, any kind of counselor may take 10 to 12 visits before you're really comfortable. So I was blessed that I knew that person. But that first step is so important because your life means something to other people. I don't even know you, but whoever's listening or in that situation, it means something to me, and it means something to us, right? That's why
Mhm.
we're doing this, to help other people. Don't be afraid to be a burden to someone. Talk to your clergy, whoever you feel you can trust with this information. But
Yeah,
go seek out counseling. It's there, and a lot of times it's free. Pick up the phone and call if you're feeling really desperate, there's that suicide
mhm.
hotline.
That's right.
There's so many
Yeah,
things you can do, but making that first step and realizing, yeah, my life is valuable,
that's
and
right.
people that are out there that love you and care for you. Because
Mhm.
when people find out what I went through, and again, I'll go back to the book because a lot of people didn't know. My friends were like, be a burden to me.
Mm.
And I was like, okay. So when I have those, bad days, whatever, I know, I could text someone or call someone, and they don't judge me any more than they used to in the past. So,
Yeah.
oh, they're still judging me, but not for
Of
this.
course.
Um, you
I'm
know,
secretly judging you.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it's not a secret anymore. They're judging me, but jerks. I gotta find better people. But they care, and we all have that, and you find that one person you kind of go to and kind of go, this is what I'm going through,
Mhm.
and how do I get help? The
Yeah.
hotlines there, counseling, and there's grief counseling centers, everywhere, and you do something where you could start that healing process and get back to
Mhm.
being you, uh,
Yeah.
because that's the important thing. finding humor and stuff in life. Do something that you enjoy. Go on a hike. Go have a good meal, enjoy a good movie. Listen to music that you love. For me, music is so much, and hearing songs from the '80s brings me back to the '80s, and
Mhm.
realizing, hearing this song takes me back to my childhood and what I was doing there, and
Mhm.
that puts a smile on my face sometimes. So it's doing those things that you are passionate about and you enjoy. If you aren't ready for a counseling, go find something that I learned in counseling. My happy place, so it was sitting by a
Yeah,
waterfall. Those are the things you could do. We all have a happy place you go to, healthy wise. Doesn't mean a bar. Doesn't mean you're doing unhealthy things, alcohol, drugs, whatever.
that's right.
Go find something that's your happy place where it's also healthy,
That's
and
right.
that's very important because we both know people will turn to alcohol and drugs to numb themselves.
Hmm.
I think we should feeling the pain's okay because we know what can we do not to feel that pain, and we still feel alive, and that's okay. But yeah, go find those things that you are passionate about and enjoy.
That's right. And so when we talk about joy and we talk about passion, the phrase that comes to mind is magic of life. I love that name. So take us there, Magic of Life Foundation program. What led you to create that? And I know that you gave a brief expose overview early on about it,
Mhm.
but truly tell us Magic of Life, how that concept came to be, what it is, and how it helps others.
Even the Magic of Life book. I'm going to take a page out of Gene Simmons' marketing.
That's right.
Magic of Life: A Son's Story of Hope After Tragedy, Grief, and a Speedo. I was just
Perfect thing to do.
number one
Yes.
now. That would be weird even for me. Okay. Um, I called it the Magic of Life because back then when I started the program, magic was a part of it.
Hmm.
Now, over I don't know how many years, when I got away from the magic and started doing stand up in it, the Magic of Life took on a whole other philosophy type of meaning. Whereas, in our life, there is that magic to find. And when you
Hmm.
do that and you find that, it's a beautiful thing. You know, when you saw a trick by David Copperfield, he did made the Statue of Liberty disappear. You go, wow,
Yes.
wasn't that awesome, right?
Yes.
And as a kid or even adult, it puts a smile on your face.
Mhm.
But the older I got, and I moved away from the magic part, I thought, man, life could be pretty magical.
Mhm.
We know this is going to sound kind of cheesy, but if we know the tricks, sometimes.
Mm.
So if we're talking about counseling and doing things that make us happy, those passionate about, those are
Mhm.
tricks to finding the
Yeah.
magic in our lives. That sounds really good. I should write that down.
Yeah. Want to.
Watch. Um, and yeah, so it took on a different meaning. So I created the Magic Life Foundation because schools wanted the alcohol awareness program, but they didn't have a way to pay for it a lot of times. So my mind was, okay, let me start a nonprofit, and maybe businesses could help sponsor the program to bring to the schools.
Hmm.
So I couldn't find a way to make that happen. I mean, I'm an idea person, but I couldn't, business wise, I couldn't get businesses to latch onto it for whatever reason. So a couple of the fundraisers we did before COVID was we awarded officers in my area for their DUI enforcement. So we did two
Okay.
fundraisers, and comedy was a part of that. I had my fellow friends who were comedians, do a performance afterwards. The second year we did a roast of one of the local judges, so humor was a very big part of it. Then COVID
Hmm.
hit, and then I've been dragging my feet to doing another one as well because I get interested in different stuff. And so now with the foundation, when we raise money, I look for either kids or other people that have been impacted by drunk driving. If they have a GoFundMe page, we'll donate to them because I had
Hmm.
Dolly in my life. If a kid loses a father or mom or whatever it is, and there's a way to support them or help, then we'll donate to that. If they're recovering through injuries, we'll donate to that too.
Hmm.
So that's
And
another way to do it to help out people that have been impacted by drunk driving.
And how can people give to your foundation?
On the michaelgersh.com,
Okay.
there is a page for the foundation and a link to like PayPal that they
Oh,
could do.
good.
I don't have Venmo
Okay.
on there, but or checks they can mail it to my address here, but I know PayPal is an easy way to do it. Or if they
Okay.
email me, they want a Venmo. I only have PayPal or Venmo. I don't have all the 30 other ones that are out there
Yeah.
these days, but we could do that.
I
So
have all of them. I got
yeah,
Cash App, PayPal, Venmo,
there's
Zelle,
so
all
many.
that.
Um,
But yeah.
I will wear a Speedo. If they want to put it, a dollar in my Speedo, I'm happy with that too. There's a visual that no one wants. I apologize for that.
That's okay.
Let's edit
That's
that part out.
no, it's
Oh,
not being edited. So someone's gonna envision you with a Speedo. Hey,
yeah.
who
Sometimes my mouth goes before my brain, so I'm
oh
very
my
sorry
gosh.
on that.
Well, so that is such a perfect transition because that falls in line with what I was thinking about prior to the Speedo question is what do you hope your legacy will be, both personally and through the Magic of Life Foundation work?
I I don't know if we could separate the two so much
Okay.
because
Okay.
it's
That's
a part
fine.
of me. And there's days where I go, there's going to be a day where I'm going to stop doing it all. And
Uh-huh.
because there's days, I'll be honest, there's days where I just want to feel, it's going to sound weird, normal, right? Where I'm not speaking, I'm not doing the foundation. I can just go out and sort of really enjoy life. I mean, which means not that I don't enjoy life, but it's like going to a restaurant or a bar or a function or like even a festival downtown and there's
Hmm.
people drinking. I can't really enjoy that because I also know there's going to be people leaving impaired. uh, and
I
that's hard, but
see.
you can't separate that. But that's who I am, and I wish I
Yeah.
didn't feel that way, but that's part of my chemistry, I guess, because
Hmm.
you're on that, you're aware of that. So the legacy, I guess, would be back to that statement I said before. If I can make someone laugh and make a difference in their lives, then I did something pretty special.
Wow.
And I think that would be it because I use humor in that message and then to inspire people to see life in a different view or inspire the drunk drivers to never drive impaired again. I
Hmm.
think that's what it would be. He made people laugh and made a difference.
And I know of someone who had a DUI and they are so thankful that they didn't hit anybody, they didn't hurt anybody, but the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment that came with it. And thankfully, they didn't have to serve jail time. But of course, they had to do the breathalyzer thing with the car and all of that. But I know that that person has committed and sworn like they are never doing that again because they were telling me that part of that impairment is that when the person's impaired, they don't even realize they're impaired. But, they were telling me they're so thankful that they didn't have it as detrimental as somebody else who has killed somebody, who's lost someone. And it just took that one time for that person to say, no more of this, and to understand the severity, and that they always felt that other people would get in that type of a situation and not them. Nobody ever thinks it could be them, where you might just have one drink too many and it could change your entire life forever. And that's what I see happening more and more, especially in cases of tragedy, is that people are not thinking about the consequences and the effect it can have, just not on the person whose life a person could take, but on the families, on the friends, on the people that they've loved, and just that downward spiral of it all. And so, Michael, when it comes to even the most important lessons that you've learned from your journey, your life journey, what would that lesson be that you want to share with others who are facing their own challenges?
Ooh, that's a tough question. That's wow, that's heavy. Oh boy. because there's so much packed into it. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
I would say, living a life where if you make there's choices and consequences in life, right? We make the right
Hmm.
choices, we have the right consequences. So living and making the right choices where you have good outcomes, where you're not harming yourself, you're not harming others, for instance, driving impaired,
Hmm.
but you're living a life where and go back to your other question, whereas when your time is up, what would you want people to say about you?
Yeah.
What impact on society to make it better do you want to give back? And think that's very important. We want to try to leave it a little bit better than how we came into it. Those
Hmm.
days you kind of go, oh, there's no help for us anymore. It's like, I'm just going to hide.
Yeah.
Head underneath my pillow and go, I'll come out in 10 more years.
Man, we've all had those days. You just
But it
want to
comes back
just
to
stay under the
humor,
blanket.
right? But here we are
Yeah.
using humor about what's going on in society.
Uh-huh. Sure do.
But it's uh, maybe I'll sum it up this way: is to be a son my mother, my father, and Dolly would continuously be proud of. Uh,
Mm.
I always, before my dad passed away, one of my mantras was be a son my mother would be proud of.
Wow.
I don't do it every day. I'm not perfect, right? And I have two goals on a daily basis: is make someone laugh and make a difference in someone's life. If I could come
Yeah.
back home and do that, then that's a good day for me. And
Hmm.
I think it's just because my dad, last few birthday cards I would get was he would write how proud he was of me. And I
Oh,
think
how beautiful.
and I think as a son, I want to continue doing that,
Hmm.
and not embarrassing them too much.
Hmm.
On stage it's okay because that's a little bit different, but in life where
Yeah.
I think parents want to be proud of their kids and vice versa, and not do anything to screw that up. So my legacy is also theirs. Talking about my
Hmm.
mom and doing this program is part of her legacy. My
Hmm.
dad's, it's part of their story. So I think just to continue that, I think would be it, really.
Hmm. And say if a person's listening or watching and they say, well, Michael, you've had such obstacles that you've had to climb over and forge through, and I've had problems and challenges too, but it seems effortless on your part. It just seems natural. But I don't know how to find my own strength. I don't know how to find the purpose in sharing my story. If a person were to say that to you, what would be a response to them in terms of how they could at least start creating meaningful and positive change in their lives in order to help someone else?
Well, I'll answer another part first, where you said it
Sure.
seems effortless, and we both know it's not, right? It looks like
That's
it's on
right.
the surface, right? Because the struggle is
Yes.
always inside. There's days where I don't want to get out of bed. There's days I lay there till 9 o'clock, 9:30 on a nice sunny day, going, I'm happy. I don't want to move. I don't want to do
Mhm.
anything. And then you kind of go, get up. I hear Dolly's voice. Get up, go do something. Even if you go take a shower, that's part of a good day. Uh,
Yeah.
I think it's trying to find those things that you're passionate about most than anything else.
Mhm.
People are passionate about saving pets. Well, I'll use that
Mhm.
as an example. 'Cause then you're saving a cat or a dog from being euthanized. Uh,
Mhm.
so even something like that, it gives you purpose. Finding that role, whether you have kids or friends, something that makes you laugh. you know it goes back to finding your own joy and happiness. And
Mhm.
it does make me sad sometimes where I've asked people, what are they passionate about, and they go nothing. They don't know. That's like,
Yeah.
okay, let's work the opposite end. What don't you like? All right, let's
Mhm.
cross those off, and then we'll work down and go, okay, what things do you enjoy? Well, we'll have something we enjoy.
That's
you
right.
it has to be some, call it ice cream. All right, fine. We all I'm not talking about those people. I don't want to hear lactose intolerant and all this. Ice cream, because
Mhm.
you know, um, yeah, we all have something out there that we're passionate about. It has to
Mhm.
be one thing. It doesn't have to be major, because what you're passionate about may not be my thing, but you know what? It means something to you.
Yeah.
You're passionate about it, and that's all that counts. It might be
Mhm.
stamp collecting, fantastic. You might love bugs, fantastic. As long as it means something that's special to you and you
Mhm.
alone get it, that's all that counts. So
Yeah.
start with that. And it doesn't have to be huge. I mean, look, I'm almost 54. It's been a work in progress, and I've done the work and the humor and all that stuff. So as before, and you agreed, that struggle is still inside. It may look effortless, but we know it's not. We put on that good face, and there's days
That's
you gotta
right.
go, oh, this is it's hard. But then take comedy, they get up on stage and you make someone laugh and went, oh, that's all I
Mhm.
needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just. I mean, I love photography. You know that. I mean, photography allows me to stay connected to my brother and my dad. We're both, my brother and I both do photography as a connection. And brings
Mhm.
us joy. You might be an artist. You might love books, whatever it is. Just find that one thing that makes you a little bit of joy, and that's your starting point.
Yeah. So, what are some special events or projects or shows or anything that you like to share with the audience that say would be coming up, say in the fall or by the end of the year? Is there anything on the books, or should people just go to your website just to see what's happening next for you?
I don't have any announcements for shows on the website. I usually post that on like Facebook and stuff.
Oh, okay. So
But
they can
yeah,
follow.
but I do
Okay.
have my next I like tomorrow I have the court, which I do monthly. So if someone's living in Northeast Ohio, they want to come and check it out, that's fine.
Mhm.
I am part of the 30th anniversary. We're doing a special 30th anniversary comedy show for the 30th anniversary of the Shawshank Redemption movie.
Okay.
Uh,
When is that going to
that
be?
is August 2nd or 3rd.
Okay.
It's a
This
Saturday.
might air
Oh, after.
afterwards. Yeah.
Well, never
It'll
mind, people. You can't come back in the past for it.
You
So
never know. You don't know.
November,
Might
yeah,
see a
no.
DeLorean somewhere. A
I
DeLorean
know I
coming.
have like a fundraiser, two comedy fundraisers in October in
Okay, good.
in
Okay.
here in the Akron area.
Okay.
November, I will be back at the Funny Stop in Cuyahoga Falls with my friend Greg Morton, who was on a semifinalist on America's Got Talent. He
Hmm.
also made me promise to write a book about my life.
Mhm.
He made me promise it. It took me 20 years to write it, but
Mhm.
he is one of my closest friends. You talk about inspiration and a talent. Go online and look up Greg Morton,
Okay.
Morton. He is just, he's just an extremely talented, funny guy and one of the nicest
Okay.
guys I've ever met. And no matter where he is, if he's coming to your town, go see him. Um, that's November. And that's about it. I mean, comedy shows will pop up every once in a while,
Yeah.
once here and there. And that's really about it. I'll get back into the fall photography and
Mhm.
post those on there, but
Of course.
that's about it for my schedule.
And we can buy your book on Amazon or directly from your
Yes,
website.
so you can do Amazon, Barnes and Noble as
Okay.
well. And then if people want autograph copies, there is a way through the website. They could contact me, and then we could do it that way too.
Wonderful.
I'll pay, and then I'll ship them out. I'll personalize them for everyone.
Perfect. And I'll also have a link to his book in the show notes. And as a closing question, as we bring this to an end, Michael, what are you most proud of about yourself?
Oof. I always have to think about myself, don't I? Oh man, you're getting me these questions. These are tough ones. I don't know.
What is one thing
You
that you're
know,
proud about yourself
I
in?
think I'm proud of. Now you're gonna make me emotional,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna try not to be, but now you're gonna get me. I think I'm proud that I did ask for help in 2018, and I'm still here.
Yes. I'm glad you're here too.
You're gonna make me cry on that one.
I'm
I,
glad
I
that you're here.
I think that as currently that one thing, yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that you're here, Michael. And I'm glad that you have been so transparent and open, and that you know that your life, I know that your life has value and it has such meaning. And I'm just glad that you're here and that you've been able to touch so many lives, and you're going to be able to touch so many more. And I am truly honored to have had you as a guest on the Power Transformation Podcast today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an awesome time. So thank you.
If you enjoyed today's show, then you don't want to miss an episode. So follow the Power Transformation Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you usually listen, and remember to rate and review. I also invite you to connect with me on social media at Alethea Felton. That's at ALETHEAFELTON. Until next time, remember to be good to yourself and to others.